I sat at my sister's engagement dinner in that Atlanta restaurant, enduring mom's latest dig about my endless dreaming and how I'd never land a real job. The words stung like fresh cuts, but I swallowed the pain. I was used to it. Then Ryan, Sophia's fiancé, locked eyes with me and said, "Wait, you're Emma Thompson? Founder of Design Forge? We just signed $1 million contract with you." Time froze. My family went silent, and inside me, a cold fury ignited. They'd belittled me for years, blind to the empire I'd built. The invitation to Sophia's engagement dinner had arrived 2 weeks earlier, pulling me back into the orbit of my Atlanta family after months of strained silence. I'd been avoiding these gatherings, but skipping this one felt like admitting defeat. As I drove through the humid evening streets toward the upscale midtown spot, doubt gnawed at me. Why subject myself to their judgments again? My parents, both high-powered attorneys in Buckhead firms, had always measured success in billable hours and corner offices. Sophia fit that mold perfectly. Top of her class at Emory Law, now climbing the ranks at a prestigious downtown practice. She'd become their pride, the one who validated every sacrifice. Me? I'd chosen design school over law, then launched my own interior firm 6 years ago. To them, it was a hobby, not a career. "When are you going to get serious, Emma?" Dad had asked during our last call, his tone laced with impatience. Mom had chimed in indirectly, suggesting I needed stability, like Sophia's. Their words echoed now, sharpening the ache in my chest. I parked and walked in, the air thick with chatter and clinking glasses. The hostess led me to the private room where the family had gathered, about 20 relatives, all dressed for the occasion, though I kept my focus on the faces that mattered. Sophia spotted me first and waved, her smile bright but obligatory. Ryan stood beside her, tall and composed, the kind of steady presence that suited her ambitions. Mom pulled me into a quick hug, then launched into small talk about the wedding plans, steering clear of my life, as always. Dad nodded hello, already deep in conversation with an uncle about market trends. I took my seat near the end of the long table, away from the center of attention, and ordered a water to steady my nerves. As appetizers arrived, the conversation flowed easily around Sophia and Ryan's story, how they'd met at a legal conference, bonded over shared drive, and now planned a future in Atlanta's elite circles. I listened, forcing nods, but the undercurrent of exclusion hit hard. Sophia mentioned her latest case win, and the table erupted in praise. Mom beamed, recounting Sophia's childhood determination as if it were destiny. Then, inevitably, eyes turned to me. "Emma's been busy with her design projects," Mom said, her voice casual but dismissive, as if recapping a minor hobby. Dad added that it was good I was finding my way, implying I still wandered aimlessly. Sophia shot me a sympathetic glance, but it only deepened the sting. Pity from the golden child. The pain twisted sharper. For years, I'd hidden the truth about Design Forge to avoid this exact scrutiny. What started as a small freelance gig after graduation had grown into a firm with a dozen employees, serving high-end clients across the Southeast. We'd redesigned corporate headquarters, luxury homes, even a chain of boutique hotels. Last quarter alone, revenue topped $2 million, and we'd just landed national recognition from the American Society of Interior Designers. But sharing that would invite skepticism, Dad questioning the numbers, Mom suggesting I pivot to something practical. Their doubt had eroded my confidence early on, turning family ties into a source of quiet betrayal. I'd stopped volunteering details, letting them assume struggle to protect my fragile progress. Now, sitting there, the lies festered. Why did their approval still matter? The confusion roiled, part anger at their blindness, part shame for craving validation. Ryan shifted the talk to his work in commercial real estate development, praising innovative partners who'd transformed outdated spaces. Sophia leaned in, adding how such collaborations boosted her firm's image. The table nodded along, oblivious to the irony. I felt the tension coil tighter, my pulse quickening. Every laugh at Sophia's anecdotes felt like a dismissal of my path. Mom turned to me again, asking indirectly if I'd considered joining a bigger firm for structure. The question landed like an accusation, implying my independence was failure. I murmured a vague response, but inside, resentment built. They'd shaped this narrative, me as the dreamer, Sophia as the achiever, without ever asking about the empire rising in silence. As the main course hit the table, grilled seafood and sides that no one seemed to notice, I withdrew further, replaying old wounds. Flashbacks hit unbidden, dropping out of their expected track, scraping by on early gigs while they funded Sophia's internships. Their concern had always masked control, pushing me toward their version of success. Doubt crept in stronger. Had I betrayed myself by not confronting it sooner? The room's warmth turned stifling, mirroring the pressure in my chest. Sophia raised a toast to new beginnings, and everyone joined, but I hesitated, the glass heavy in my hand. This dinner wasn't just celebration. It was a mirror to the fractures I'd ignored. Anger simmered beneath the confusion, hinting at the resolve forming. How long could I let their story define mine? The evening dragged, each moment amplifying the rift. Relatives asked about my little business, their tones patronizing, reinforcing the family's script. Ryan mentioned a recent project, describing seamless redesigns that echoed my firm style. He credited the visionary behind it without naming names, and I bit back the urge to claim credit. The omission fueled my inner storm, pain from years of invisibility clashing with a growing defiance. Mom pulled me aside during a lull, expressing worry about my future in hushed tones, as if my choices threatened the family image. Her words, meant to connect, only isolated me more. I nodded, but the bewilderment turned to quiet fury. This wasn't concern. It was judgment, a betrayal of the sisterly bond we'd lost. By dessert, the strain peaked. Sophia and Ryan shared engagement photos on their phones, drawing oohs and ahs. I smiled through it, but the exclusion burned. Dad cornered me briefly, suggesting I network with his colleagues for real opportunities. The offer, cloaked as help, dismissed everything I'd built. Confusion swirled into resolve. I couldn't keep hiding. The lies had shattered my calm long ago. Tonight, they threatened to break me entirely. As the night wound down, I excused myself early, stepping into the humid Atlanta air. Driving home, the anger crystallized. Their world had no room for my truth, but I was done shrinking to fit. The tension promised change, swift, inevitable. The main course had barely begun when Ryan steered the conversation toward his latest projects in commercial development. He described transforming outdated office spaces into efficient hubs, crediting partners who streamlined workflows through smart layouts. Sophia nodded along, adding how such upgrades aligned with her legal work on property deals. The table absorbed his words with interest, unaware of the parallel to my own efforts. I kept silent, fork midway to my mouth, as he detailed a recent contract that promised regional expansion. Pain from earlier dismissals lingered, but curiosity pulled me in. His description matched DesignForge's recent bids too closely. Mom shifted focus briefly, recounting Sophia's role in a high-profile merger, drawing applause that underscored the family's priorities. Dad leaned in, probing Ryan about timelines and budgets, treating the topic as serious business. Sophia squeezed Ryan's hand onto the table, her pride evident in the way she prompted him for more details. I felt the exclusion deepen, each nod to their success a reminder of my hidden path. Ryan continued, explaining how the chosen firm had outbid competitors with innovative proposals that integrated client needs seamlessly. He mentioned the founder's vision, someone who'd built from scratch, turning freelance sketches into a multi-million operation. The words hit like a jolt. My grip tightened on the utensil, appetite vanishing as recognition dawned. DesignForge, that was my firm, the one I'd bootstrapped after design school, growing it through late nights and rejected loans. We'd just secured that exact contract last week, a $1 million deal for the Southeast portfolio Ryan now praised. Shock rippled through me, cold and immediate, freezing the room's warmth. How had he not connected it sooner? The coincidence twisted into something sharper, years of family doubt crashing against this unwitting exposure. I set down my fork, pulse racing, as the table hung on his enthusiasm. Ryan paused, glancing my way as if an afterthought struck him. He recalled my earlier vague mention of design work, piecing together the name Emma Thompson from Sophia's stories. His eyes narrowed slightly, then widened in realization. The question came direct. Was I the founder he'd heard so much about? Silence blanketed the group, forks hovering, breaths held. Mom's hand stilled on her glass, Dad's posture stiffened mid-lean. Sophia turned fully toward me, confusion etching her features for the first time that night. The air thickened, every eye now fixed, waiting for confirmation. I met Ryan's gaze steadily, the internal quake settling into a numb clarity. Yes, I confirmed quietly, that was my company. The admission landed heavy, shattering the evening's facade. Whispers erupted, Uncle Tom muttering about valuations, Aunt Lisa pulling out her phone to search. Ryan stammered an apology for the spotlight, but excitement laced his tone as he connected the dots aloud. Sophia's merger clients had raved about our designs. His team had reviewed our portfolio just days ago. The irony burned. My hobby had infiltrated their worlds without a whisper. Shock morphed into bewilderment inside me, layers peeling back rapidly. All those calls where Mom suggested I stabilize like Sophia, Dad's offhand remarks about real careers, they'd built a narrative on assumptions I'd never challenged. Pain surged fresh, not from the revelation itself, but from the years of isolation it exposed. I'd hidden Design Forge to shield it from their skepticism, fearing it'd become another point of criticism. Now, truth spilled uncontrollably, forcing confrontation. Anger flickered beneath the confusion. How dare they judge what they never bothered to understand? Yet resolve stirred, quiet and unyielding. This wasn't breakdown, but breakthrough. The table fractured into questions. Dad demanded details on revenue streams. Mom expressed indirect surprise that I'd kept such success quiet. Sophia admitted she'd assumed my work remained small-scale, based on family updates. Ryan filled gaps, describing how our firm had revolutionized their project bids, earning industry nods. Each revelation amplified the tension, relatives exchanging glances, recalibrating their view of me. I answered sparingly, facts over emotion. 12 employees now, national awards last year, expansion plans for Atlanta. No boasts, just reality clashing with their script. Inner turmoil escalated. Betrayal hit hardest. Not Ryan's slip, but the family's collective blindness. They dismissed my path as whimsy, pouring resources into Sophia's ascent while I scraped by alone. Confusion warred with fury. Why had I let their doubts define my silence? The pain of invisibility, once dulled, roared back, sharpening into determination. This exposure wasn't ruin, it was reckoning. As dessert arrived amid stilted chatter, I felt the shift, victim no more, but architect of my narrative. The evening's end loomed, but the real storm brewed within, promising swift upheaval. Sophia caught my eye across the table, her sympathy turning to unease, sensing the fractures widening. I nodded once, signaling the unspoken. Everything changes now. Driving home later, the city's lights blurred through unshed tears. Revelation had stripped illusions, leaving raw edges, pain from lost trust, bewilderment at their ignorance, anger fueling resolve. No hysteria gripped me. Instead, a calculated calm emerged. They'd learned the cost of underestimation, not through rage, but truth's unyielding weight. The contract Ryan praised? It funded expansions they'd never imagined. My empire, built in shadows, now demanded light. Tension coiled tighter, propelling me toward action. No turning back. Their world tilted, and I stood ready to steady mine. The drive back to my midtown apartment blurred the Atlanta skyline into streaks of light, but my mind raced ahead, dissecting the evening's fallout. Revelation had cracked the facade, leaving raw edges of pain and confusion exposed, but anger now sharpened into focus. No more hiding, Design Forge deserved its place, and so did I. By the time I pulled into the garage, resolve hardened. Confrontation required strategy, not outburst. I'd use facts as leverage, turning their underestimation against them without descending to their level of dismissal. Inside, I booted up my laptop and pulled up the company's dashboard, the screen glowing with metrics that told my real story. 12 employees strong, we'd hit $2 million in quarterly revenue, with contracts spanning Georgia to Florida. Awards from the American Society of Interior Designers lined a digital folder, last year's Innovation Prize for Sustainable Office Redesigns, this quarter's nod for client retention. I compiled them methodically. Screenshots of client testimonials, revenue charts showing steady climbs since inception, emails from partners like Ryan's firm praising our precision. Each file built the case, not for vengeance, but vindication. Pain from years of silence throbbed, but I channeled it into selection, prioritizing evidence that highlighted independence. No need for emotional appeals. Numbers and achievements would speak louder. Next, I outlined the family meeting. A neutral spot, perhaps the coffee shop near Dad's office, kept control in my hands, away from their home turf. Timing mattered. A week out, enough space for them to stew in uncertainty without letting momentum fade. Invitations via group text, direct and brief, stating the purpose as clarifying my work to avoid defensiveness. Sophia might push back, citing busyness. Mom could feign concern. I'd preempt that, preparing responses that redirected to facts. Inner tension mounted as I scripted key points: how early loans got rejected by banks they could have influenced, how their advice to pivot had nearly derailed me. Not accusations, but truths to mirror their blindness. Doubt flickered briefly. Would this heal or widen rifts? Confusion from the dinner lingered, mixing with the sting of betrayal. They'd shaped me as the failure, Sophia as the star, pouring praise and resources her way while I bootstrapped alone. Anger surged at the memory. Holiday gatherings where my updates got glossed over, calls ending with sighs about stability. Yet resolve overrode it. This plan wasn't destruction. It was reclamation. I'd share the portfolio, let them absorb the scale. 50 major projects completed, expansion to Charlotte underway. Ryan's contract became Exhibit A, proof of infiltration into their circles. I cross-referenced details, ensuring accuracy. Design Forge started in a rented co-working space 6 years back, post-design school, when family ties frayed. First client, a small startup needing affordable branding. Growth came through referrals, not handouts, unlike Sophia's internships they funded. I noted ironies. Their firm used our designs for client meetings, Mom's book club hosted in a home we renovated. These connections amplified the betrayal, fueling my clarity. No dramatic reveals, just presentation, questions answered factually. If Dad probed finances, I'd cite the valuation at $25 million, bootstrapped to profitability without venture debt. As midnight approached, the outline solidified. Agenda in bullet points, visuals cued for sharing. Tension escalated with each edition. Imagining their reactions built pressure, but also empowered. Pain transformed, bewilderment yielding to strategy. I'd arrive prepared, voice steady, eyes forward. This wasn't about winning approval, it was seizing narrative control. Sophia's unease at dinner hinted at cracks in her pedestal. Mom's surprise could prompt reflection. Dad might recalibrate alliances. Regardless, I'd exit owning my story. Sleep evaded me. Mind replaying scenarios. What if they dismissed it as luck? I'd counter with timelines. 2 years to first profit, 4 to regional dominance. Anger at their assumptions, me scraping by while funding their vacations indirectly, pushed deeper preparation. I added a closing. Invitation to tour the office, testing genuine interest. No pleas for apology. Consequences would stem from truth's weight. Resolve deepened, cold and precise. Victimhood ended here. In planning, I forged agency. Morning brought review. Files zipped into a shareable drive, invite sent. Responses trickled. Sophia confirmed hesitantly, Mom with vague worry, Dad succinctly. The weight intensified stakes, each hour heightening anticipation. Inner shift accelerated, from reactive hurt to proactive force. Betrayal's sting motivated, not consumed. This meeting would reflect their neglect back, subtly, through evidence. No shouts, just unassailable reality. As the day progressed, confidence built. The plan felt right, tension coiling toward release. Change loomed, swift and self-directed. I was no longer the shadow, but the light exposing them. The coffee shop near Dad's Buckhead office buzzed with mid-morning patrons, but our corner table felt isolated, the hum of voices a distant backdrop to the family's arrival. I'd chosen this spot for its neutrality, no home comforts to soften blows, just hard chairs and direct light. Sophia arrived first, sliding into the seat across from me with a tentative nod, Ryan at her side offering a supportive glance. Mom and Dad followed minutes later, Dad carrying his briefcase, as if this were a deposition. They settled uneasily, orders placed for coffees that went untouched. Tension hung thick from the start, their postures rigid. eyes avoiding mine until I began. I opened my laptop, screen angled for all to see, and launched into the presentation without preamble. DesignForge's dashboard filled the view, revenue graphs climbing steadily from inception, client lists including their own networks. I pointed to the million-dollar contract Ryan's firm had signed, noting how it funded our Atlanta expansion. Pain from the engagement dinner resurfaced, but I kept my voice even, letting data drive the narrative. Sophia shifted, admitting indirectly that she'd heard colleagues praise our work without realizing the connection. Mom expressed surprise at the scale, her tone hinting at unspoken worry over my secrecy. Dad leaned forward, questioning growth metrics, but I countered with timelines. 6 years from solo freelancer to 12-employee firm, all self-funded after their early dismissals. As slides progressed, awards from the American Society of Interior Designers, testimonials from high-profile clients, the room's atmosphere shifted. Ryan nodded along, confirming how our designs streamlined his projects, reducing costs by 20%. Sophia's discomfort grew. She mentioned her law firm's lobby renovation, one of ours, and how it impressed visiting partners. The irony landed without my emphasis, their successes intertwined with my hobby. Anger simmered beneath my calm, but I directed it into facts. How family advice to pivot to law had nearly stalled me, rejected loan applications they could have endorsed. No accusations flew. Instead, I shared emails from banks citing lack of collateral, underscoring the isolation I'd faced. Consequences unfolded organically as truths stacked. Dad's questions turned probing, revealing his recalibration. He suggested introductions to his contacts now, a reversal from past indifference. Mom attempted defense, claiming concern had driven their doubts, but her voice faltered when I displayed revenue reports showing profitability 3 years ago. Sophia confessed envy had colored her views, admitting she'd downplayed my updates to maintain her edge. Ryan stayed neutral, but his affirmations amplified the exposure. Our platform had won bids against giants, earning regional dominance. The table fell quiet at times, each revelation chipping at their narrative. Pain twisted inside me, years of belittlement flashing back, but resolve held, transforming hurt into quiet power. Tension peaked when I addressed the betrayal head-on, not with shouts but evidence. A folder of old messages appeared, family group chats dismissing my pitches, holiday calls redirecting to Sophia's wins. I explained how their assumptions forced silence, protecting the business from further doubt. Dad acknowledged the oversight indirectly, regretting not inquiring deeper. Mom's eyes welled, but she nodded, grasping how her worry had isolated me. Sophia reached across, squeezing my hand, her apology simple. She'd competed unconsciously, fearing my independence threatened her status. Ryan added perspective, noting how family dynamics often blind successes. No one raged. Instead, reflection surfaced. Dad admitting his focus on tradition overlooked innovation, Mom revealing fear I'd outpaced them emotionally. The mirror I'd set reflected harshly, yet fairly. Their underestimation boomeranged. Dad's firm now sought our services formally. Sophia proposed collaboration on legal office redesigns. But consequences cut deeper personally. Mom scheduled a follow-up talk, hinting at amends. Sophia vowed to amplify my story in her circles. Ryan praised the strategy, seeing parallels in his developments. Satisfaction stirred, not vengeful glee, but respect for the process. Truth dismantled illusions without destruction. Inner storm eased, pain acknowledged, confusion clarified into strength. Betrayal's weight lifted as they confronted complicity, each shift validating my path. As the meeting wrapped, I closed the laptop, offering an office tour invitation. They accepted tentatively, signaling potential bridges. Driving away, the city's pulse matched my steadying heartbeat. No triumph parade, just cathartic release. They'd face their roles in my struggles, consequences self-inflicted through neglect. Anger faded to resolve. I'd reclaimed control subtly, morally. The plan succeeded, not in breaking them, but exposing fractures for repair. Tension dissolved into forward momentum, their world adjusted around my truth. Satisfaction bloomed, tempered by empathy. Change started here, on my terms. The office tour took place 2 days after the coffee shop meeting, a deliberate step to test the waters of change without forcing proximity. I'd arranged it for late afternoon, when sunlight filtered through the large windows of our midtown studio, illuminating mock-ups of ongoing projects. Sophia arrived with Ryan, followed by Mom and Dad, their steps measured as they entered the open workspace. Employees nodded greetings but kept to tasks, respecting the boundary I'd set. No fanfare, just functionality. I led them through the main area, pointing out design boards for the Charlotte expansion, revenue projections pinned nearby. Tension from prior revelations lingered, but their questions came tentative, focused on logistics rather than doubt. Sophia noted how our sustainable materials aligned with her firm's green initiatives. Ryan compared layouts to his developments. Mom trailed quietly, absorbing the scale, while Dad scanned financial summaries I'd left out. As we moved to the conference room for a wrap-up, conversations shifted inward. Sophia admitted the meeting had prompted her to revisit old emails, realizing how our competitive edge had blinded her to my progress. She proposed joint ventures, like redesigning her office space, but I steered it toward mutual benefit, not obligation. Ryan supported the idea, highlighting synergies that could strengthen both sides. Dad brought up potential introductions to his network, framing it as overdue support, and I accepted selectively, outlining terms to keep boundaries clear. Mom expressed regret indirectly, mentioning how her worries had stemmed from fear of my divergence from family paths. No deep apologies flowed. Instead, nods acknowledged the past's weight. The session ended with handshakes and a shared calendar invite for quarterly updates, a structure to prevent old patterns. Driving home that evening, quiet settled over me like a steadying weight. Pain from years of dismissal had dulled, confusion resolved into perspective. Their blindness wasn't malice, but limitation. Anger, once a driving force, now simmered low, replaced by resolve to maintain distance where needed. I reviewed the outcomes. Sophia's outreach led to a preliminary contract for her firm's lobby. Ryan's firm expanded our deal by another phase. Dad followed through with 2 solid leads, vetted by my team. Mom started weekly calls, asking about projects without judgment, though I kept responses measured. These shifts brought no instant harmony, but accountability emerged. Sophia volunteered to share my story at family events, countering past narratives. Their actions spoke of consequence. Discomfort in facing underestimation prompted genuine effort. Weeks passed, and the calm deepened. Design Forge thrived, securing the Charlotte office and hiring 3 new designers. Family interactions normalized, stripped of pretense. Holiday plans included me on equal footing, discussions veering toward collaboration over comparison. Sophia's wedding approached, and I contributed design elements for the venue, a neutral gesture that bridged gaps without erasing scars. Mom confided in a call about her own regrets over pushing traditional paths, hinting at therapy to unpack dynamics. Dad joined a business advisory group I recommended, applying lessons from our exchange. Ryan became an ally, facilitating referrals that boosted revenue. No one sought full absolution. Progress came through small, consistent steps. Inner peace solidified as I walked Atlanta's paths during breaks, mind free from the old churn. Betrayal's echo faded, teaching that silence had protected growth, not weakness. Resolve turned outward, mentoring young designers, emphasizing self-reliance over external validation. The family's evolution mirrored this. Sophia lessened her drive to outshine, channeling it into partnership. Mom embraced uncertainty in my choices. Dad valued innovation beyond law. I set firmer boundaries, declining overreach while welcoming input. Satisfaction arose not from their change alone, but my agency in it. No destruction, just redirection. One evening, reviewing quarterly reports, the thought crystallized. I hadn't torn them down. Their doubts had built walls they'd now dismantle themselves. Calm enveloped the achievements. 28 million valuation. National awards renewed. Hope flickered in new connections. Sophia's thank you for the wedding designs. Mom's invitation to a non-business lunch. Catharsis washed through, affirming endurance. I'd withstood the storm, emerging unburdened, free to chart ahead. The narrative shifted, from victim to vanguard. Their consequences self-realized, my strength self-forged. Forward motion defined us now, ties resilient yet redefined.